I think after these two brilliant speeches, there's really very little left to say, except that it's such a great privilege to be part of this panel with Professor Romila Thapar, Professor Purushottam Agrawal, and of course, Professor Ramaswamy. I'm indeed extremely grateful to the JNU TA for giving me the opportunity to be part of this extremely important program, the MOSAIC. I think this is the most apposite title. This is the most apposite title for this fiesta on JNU, as JNU is a microcosm of India, and what an overwhelming response to MOSAIC. And therefore, it's really wonderful to be here in the campus to be part of this program. Now, JNU is one of the best universities in India, possibly in the world, and certainly a leading university for the humanities and social sciences. It has had a remarkable combination of good faculty and bright students. All of you are here, and very bright students from diverse backgrounds. The university's output, especially its research output, which was mentioned by Professor Nair, is considerable and perhaps greater than most universities in India. For all these reasons, I think it is important to reflect on why JNU, as a public university, was able to generate such a high level of intellectual heft and influence. More importantly, the history of institutions like JNU is crucial to understanding the history of higher education in India and the public university more generally. Now, among many factors that have contributed to this, there are three distinct features which we've had an opportunity to reflect on today. But nonetheless, the three distinct features of the structure and culture of teaching and learning stand out, and that enabled our university to rapidly emerge as a significant force in higher education. Number one, social diversity. Number two, democratic functioning. And three, critical thought. Not just thought, but critical thought, a point that I think Professor Agrawal very rightly emphasized through his comments. First, JNU was hospitable to the principle of diversity and inclusion. Undoubtedly, the exceptional admission policy and student recruitment design based on deprivation points that inducted candidates from virtually every region of India, from economically deprived areas and those historically disadvantaged by their place in the caste hierarchy, contributed to this. This is a very, very special characteristic of the university, because it isn't just regional, linguistic, or gender diversity, but also, and I emphasize this, and again a point that has been made by rather eloquently by Professor Purushottam Agrawal. So it's not just it is not just regional, linguistic, or gender diversity, but also the diversity of socioeconomic backgrounds, and this is crucial. And the OBC reservations that were introduced in the university have added to this dimension and made it even more diverse. Second, the JNU was a pioneer with regard to democratic functioning. It was built as a self-regulating university with a high level of democratic participation of teachers and students. And I emphasize that teachers and students at every level, starting with the student faculty committee in every center, which seems to have fallen into disuse. What came out of this participative democratic structure was that consensus was built within the university community from center to the school and to the university. Democratic functioning, I must emphasize, was sustained by the tradition of responsible student politics. That was a one of the striking features of this university and a very unusually high level of participation of students in the conduct of the student union elections by a student-run election commission, which kept, and this is again important, which kept the election processes free of violence and money power, which has been the bane of student union elections in most universities, especially in North India. But we know, alas, that the university has changed in most respects. It has been centralized to the detriment of decentralized democratic processes. Established norms have been violated, seniority rules have been completely set aside, and norms of selection have been overturned. In short, JNU has never functioned in the way it is functioning now, or at least that is what one hears from colleagues, because I have, along with my colleagues, been retired for a long time, but we are in touch with the university, and that is the sense we get. Third, and this is really the critical part, third, the democratic ethos of JNU fostered critical thinking and questioning, a point that Professor Romila Thapar made so very nicely, and not the pursuit of certain beliefs or dogmas as is commonly believed about JNU. Everyone in the university was not ideologically on the same page. There was a contestation and multiplicity of opinions and views. This meant a frequency of debate and discussion, both on matters academic and, above all, the world we live in. And from these discussions emerged a critical understanding of history, society, economy, and polity. This understanding produced critiques that questioned the dominant ideologies of class, power, and nationalism, which exasperate regimes that insist on conformity and, above all, dubious knowledge and fake knowledge. The university conscious, and this is extremely important, and perhaps accounts for why we were such a unique institution. The university consciously decided not to be subject to the imperialist discourses in social sciences and abjured merely repeating whatever happens to be fashionable at the time in the metropolis, whether in history or economics or politics or other subjects. That gave it a very special character, a very specific character and gravitas. The idea that scholarship was not just for self-promotion and building your CV, but in the interest of the people, in some general sense, in howsoever a vague sense, but the fact that we are interested in the life of others and not just our own. This is, in my view, what accounts for the great significance of this university as a progressive institution. Now, given its status as a leading institution of higher learning, the criticism and the bad press it gets is nothing short of astonishing. It is hard to come across any serious criticism based on the university's academic performance. It is as if the critics, and there are a legion of critics, have determined that an institution cannot be judged by its academic quality alone. It must be judged primarily on the basis of its politics, and in case of JNU, its history of left-wing politics and agitations. Finally, JNU was by no means perfect, and there were many shortcomings and failures, some of which have been mentioned, and some of which I think we may have occasion to talk about. Professor Thapar mentioned 2 or 3, and I think both of them are extremely important. The whole issue of the challenge of interdisciplinarity, the language issue. Tutorials worked very well in the History Center, but did not perhaps work so well in other centers at all. So I would add actually the tutorial issue as one of the challenges that I can certainly say in the Center for Political Studies, where I taught for 39 years, was certainly an issue. So JNU was by no means perfect, there were many shortcomings and failures. But that said, it is as good as it gets in a public university in India. So what is under attack is not just JNU, but the idea of a public university and its accomplishments. And what we are defending is the idea and necessity of a public university, But every time, and I want to end on a positive and optimistic note, and I think this is really the wonderful part of JNU, and we are seeing it today so nicely. But every time one feels depressed about the way the university is functioning nowadays, it's important to remember that the university community has shown amazing resilience and resistance. The remarkable response of the students, the teachers, and others in defense of the democratic and intellectual traditions, the spirit of JNU, or what you call the criticality of spirit of JNU, is quite extraordinary. It's absolutely splendid. JNU survives and will continue to thrive. Also, I hope, and I think there are indications that it will continue to thrive in the future despite the concerted attempts to pull it down, to stifle the right to debate and discuss, the right to inclusive and affordable public education, and above all, the right to criticize the state, all of which contributed to the uniqueness and the wonder that is JNU. Thank you.